Kathy, here we are again. How are you? You're still on mute, I think, Kathy.
Yes. Hello.
No worries. Good to see you again. Welcome back, Simone. Hey, Car, how are you? You good? Excellent, mate. Excellent. That's what we like to hear. And Simone, sorry. No, that's everybody. All right. Awesome. Good to have you all back.
Thank you.
No worries, Simone.
Sorry, I'm eating lunch at the same time.
That's all right. You got to squeeze it in wherever you can, champion. I totally understand.
I got carried away with doing my work and I thought, oh, it's like quarter to one.
I better get some lunch in quick. Nice problem to have. Nice problem to have. All right. I think you guys should be able to see my introductory slide. Is that correct?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. All right. All right, guys. I'm just waiting basically for start time. If you have questions, though, fire away.
I'll have a question. Are we doing B, C, D, and E today, or just the next one's B? Is it?
Yeah, we're doing B now. We won't
okay.
be doing C, D, and E today, but I'll inevitably talk about it, Kathy.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No worries. My pleasure. Gemma, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Nice to have you here with us. David, welcome back.
Thanks, Mike.
Dr. Pooven is in the house. How are you, Pooven?
I'm okay. It's just that some construction work is going on, so it's very noisy.
I'm sorry to hear that. We can't hear it when you're talking, is the good news, but I'm sorry that that's a distraction for you.
I'll keep myself muted.
Okay, great. That makes sense. Excuse me, I'll put on my getting ready for the start for a webinar voice. Gemma, what brings you to this session? Are you doing the DEL cluster or the DES cluster or a bit of both?
I finished DEL and I just need to catch up on DES.
Nice, nice. We'll be talking about session planning in this one, which is something you would have seen before because you would have done quite a bit of that in your DEL cluster. But if you find this refresher helpful, awesome. Happy to help you out. We're just about at start time, guys. I didn't bring any dad jokes with me this time. I know some of you are shattered and disappointed.
Oh, very disappointed, Damien.
Yeah, I know some of you are celebrating inside, and that's all right too. Either way is fine. But this session is going to be all about creating session plans. So let's dive in. Earlier this morning, we had a previous session about learning programs, and basically we went through the different steps of creating a learning program. What we're doing in this session now is we're going to create session plans. And quite often we create session plans pursuant to a learning program that we've already created. So I'm going to show you an example this afternoon of one session plan. Okay, and that session plan is going to be created pursuant to the learning program we looked at this morning. So for anyone who's here who didn't see the session this morning, it's not a problem. Just ignore any references I make to the learning program from this morning. And if you're not doing the DS cluster, then that won't be an issue for you at all. But the focus here will be on creating session plans as advertised in the information for the session. All right. Here is my initial question for you. And my initial question is, how do you feel about creating session plans? Do you feel confident about it? Are you scared about it? It's brand new. You've never done it before, so it terrifies you. Pop something in the chat. So hit that little chat button and tell me about your level of comfort with respect to creating session plans. Now, you might have come along for the ride today just to see if there's anything new or interesting or any tips I'm going to give you. So if you feel as though you're an absolute legend at it, tell us. But if not, give us an indication of your level of comfort with respect to session planning. And I see the responses are starting to come in. Got a couple of numerical people who kicked us off there, which is fine. Kathy's gone the 8 out of 10. Car's gone the 6. Gemma's said, providing I'm comfortable with the content. You're comfortable? Great. David writes, it can be a very lengthy process. It can, David, it can, but I will try to help you today to get to the right sweet point in the middle. There's that middle sweet point between under planning and then not being able to use the session plan effectively, and over planning and having too much information in the session plan. That's often not a good idea either. So, David, I'll be helping you and everyone get to that sweet point in the middle. Katie's a 6, Catherine's a 7. I've created session plans for various topics. Have a feel a refresher would be good. Well, we will refresh you just like one of those towelettes they give you on the plane. Okay, we'll be looking to make you feel nice and comfortable and happy with it. And Giannis feels comfortable, and Simone's gone comfortable with session planning within a comfort zone. Feel a little daunted on the units you've selected. Okay, all right. Well, I'll give you a bit of a tip about that straight away, Simone. And my tip is, if you're developing a session plan on an area you're not very familiar with, it is more difficult. I'll acknowledge that. But the thing that might help you is the unit of competency. Because the unit of competency has all that information, all those elements and performance criteria. It gives you ideas and the performance evidence and the knowledge evidence. Look at that holistically, look through those lists, and that should give you a really good idea on the types of things you might want to consider in your sessions. And keeping in mind that you might not be trying to deliver the whole course through sessions as such. You might also be supplementing it with on-the-job training for the participants and maybe some self-paced learning. So you might not need to put all that content in sessions, but it'll help you to help give you ideas on what sort of things to include in the sessions. Does that sound helpful to you?
Yes, it's I suppose for me, it's trying to base it with what I do and currently what I'm not doing as such. So it's, I can't teach driving instructors, but there's no really unit of competency for driving in it sort of teaching wise and sort of having a session plan for a class. It's more of a one-on-one kind of thing.
That is true. And typically that is the case. But having said that, you're a driving instructor, I presume. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So my next question was going to be, do you know about driving cars? Yes, you do. So given that knowledge base you've already got, if you were teaching a class, then use that same knowledge, put it in the classroom situation. That's not going to be as practical. They're not going to be sitting driving the car in front of you. You're not going to have the same terror or concerns about being in the car with them, because it'll be a lot safer in the environment where you're teaching a class, but it'll be the same sort of content. And you'll just have to think through, how do I teach this a little bit differently? And I'm sure you'll come up with some really good creative ideas.
Trying to.
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right. And sometimes, and this is sort of tangential to Simone's good question, sometimes our students get a little bit nervous thinking, well, what if my content isn't very good? What if, I'm not really an expert in that area, and, it might not be very good what I'm teaching and the stuff I'm trying to teach. Just remember that Damien, Helen, Kim, Anne, all of us, we're not experts in the areas that you're going to be training and assessing either. So we're not here to pull you up on your technical knowledge of what it is that you're planning training and planning assessments about. We're much more interested in the process of training and assessing, and see that you can duplicate those processes. because that combined with your industry knowledge, which is what you'll be using in a job situation, will put you in great shape to produce terrific session plans, terrific assessment plans, whatever the case might be. So we're not caught up on the technical knowledge. So please don't sit there and stress about the content and get really worked up about, do I include this in the class or do I not include this in the class? Should I spend 12 minutes on it or should I spend 14 minutes on it? You know, I'd like to do a role play, or maybe it's too hard. I'll have to think about that for 5 minutes. I might have to have a lie down. Don't go in that direction. Okay. Just make decisions, and make decisions that make sense to you based upon your expectations with that unit of competency in that area. And the chances are that you'll do a terrific job and we'll be happy with it. Okay. All right. So that's one question. Very long answer, but I will do that today. I will go off on tangents because I want to teach you a lot of good information. And as we're moving through this template, I am going to throw golden nuggets out there today to try and give you ideas on what will work really well when you make your submissions to us, what errors and problems might come up when you're preparing your session plans, and not just for the sake of your assessments, but for industry practice as well, which ultimately is what we're more interested in, because we want to see you thrive when you're working in a training organization doing the things that we teach you. All right. Look, lots of good information there about your level of comfort. So thank you for sharing that with me, folks. Is there any other questions before I dive in and we start looking at the templates? Okay. So for anyone who wasn't here this morning, a little bit of a catch up to an extent. I think there was only one or two of you. This morning we were working on a unit of competency and preparing a learning program for it. And that unit of competency was, you can't see the code here, but it's SITH. Oh, I've had a mental blank and can't remember the number. It's SITH FAB024. SITH FAB024. And that is called Prepare and Serve Non-Alcoholic Beverages. Now, can everyone see on the screen at the moment the session plan template for it?
No, you've got the learning program template up.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted. So with that learning program template, what we did this morning was we developed the whole learning program for that unit of competency. And there's a couple of things that I want to highlight here, which we'll be looking for in assessment 9 in DES. Now, if you're viewing this session because you're in DEL and your focus is on DEL, then to an extent you can ignore what I'm going to say because it's not going to be relevant to your assessments, but it is important to what we do in industry. So listen in anyway. What my comments in the next couple of minutes are really directed at those of you who are doing learning design DES assessment number 9 or assessment number 11, which duplicates the process. And just a couple of points I want to make. This morning, when we developed the program title, I suggest you just call it the same as the unit of competency, and that's totally fine. Now, whether or not you call that program based upon the name of the unit of competency or something else, that is the program title for your learning program. And if you ever asked what is the learning program, the program title for that learning program, then that's what it is. As a result, there is a place in the session plan where we ask you what the program title is. It should match. Okay. So if this is what you've got in 9A, then when you get to 9B and you're doing the session plan template, it should be the same answer because it's the same program title. It should be the same. Does that seem instinctive? Okay. Don't get creative. Don't reword it. Just go back and copy the name. Similarly, if I scroll down most of the way through this template, down the bottom, we have the session plan titles. And this morning I suggested to you that you should have between 2 and 5 session plan titles. In fact, I recommended in the direction of a particular number. And what was that number that I recommended?
2.
2, okay, because you know the number of session plan titles that you identified here equals the number of session plans we expect you to develop in assessment 9. So I suggested 2 was a good number because that's the absolute minimum that we'll be satisfied with. But what is important is you've named the session plans here. Okay. Whatever names you've used for the session plans here need to match with the names of the session plans that you actually develop. Okay. Now, I don't think that's rocket science, but unless I say it, it might not occur to you. So when you're developing your session plans, and we're going to be doing one of those today together, okay, I'll be giving you the chance to do that. Make sure you use the same session plan title you identified in your learning program. Okay. For those of you who are doing DEL cluster, we don't get you to develop a learning program first. So, you won't have that level of, extra complication to consider. The other final thing I wanted to mention is this morning in the learning program, especially related to assessments 9 and 11 in the learning design program, you would have put a number down here for the class off the job component. Now that's the number of hours that correspond to your session plans. So your session plan totals in terms of their duration should add up to this number here, class off the job component. So in the example here, I've got 12, okay? If you had 12, then you should prepare 12 hours of session plans, okay? If you got 6, which is a number I sort of suggested to you was in a clever ballpark this morning, then your session plan totals should add up to 6 hours as well. Does that make sense, folks?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So those 3 things are really, really obvious links between the lesson, the learning program that we developed this morning and the session plan that you're going to develop this afternoon. Are there any questions generally about learning programs or anything else before I bring up the session plan template and we start having a look at it and working our way through it? I want to say good afternoon to Bevan. I see that you've joined us, Bevan. Great to have you here. And hello, Katie. Good to have you here as well. So welcome. Okay, cool. All right, so let's change that share, and we're now going to share the session plan template. Now, similar to what I did this morning, for those of you who attended the earlier session, here's one I prepared earlier. In fact, I want to give some credit where it's due. And these templates that we're using today as examples were actually prepared by another one of our learning leaders. Many of you will know Diane. You will know she's an absolute legend, and she prepared these session plan and learning program examples and has done a terrific job with it. So thank you, Diane. Not that you're going to be watching this video, but I just wanted to give her some recognition. So let's dive in. Does this look familiar? The first part of the session plan says prepare and serve non-alcoholic beverages. Where did I get that program title from? Anyone know? Jump on the microphone and tell me.
Training.gov.
Well, I did get it from training.gov.au.
The learning program.
Yes, because training.gov.au was the name of that unit of competency. We decided to use that same name as our program title, okay, which is fine. So that's the program title. It comes from our learning program, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. So just copy it. Don't get creative with it. Now, where did this session title come from, do you think?
The learning program.
It came from the learning program too. So this is session number 1 we're working with here. And if I showed you again the learning program that I worked with this morning as an example, you'll see this is exact wording from session title number 1, okay, where we identified all the session titles. This one here is the total time for this session, which is 3 hours. So you won't see that on the learning program this morning, but for all the sessions that I create in this template, they will add up to the total of what I had for the learning program, what I had in the learning program this morning. So be aware of that classroom off the job component, the total time for all of our sessions needs to add up to that total that was specified in the learning program template. All right. Are we all good so far? Any questions so far? All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause for about 2 or 3 minutes, because what I want you to do is take an opportunity to start your own session plan. So I'm going to work through this similar to what I did this morning at a speed where I think you can keep up with me and you can develop your own session plan while we're here in this session. Who thinks that sounds like a good idea? All right, cool. We've got a couple of thumbs up. So what we need to do is we need to go and download this template. Now, if you're doing this for learning design, then the relevant template is 9B. So it's assessment 9 from the learning design, the DES course. Go to assessment 9. This is 9B. If you want to design a session plan for the delivery and facilitation cluster, okay, that's perfectly good too. If you want to do one of the one-on-one templates, that'd be assessment number 8 or assessment 11. So I'd go assessment 8. If you want to do one and that's for one-on-one sessions. If you want to do one for a presentation for a group, you've got a couple of options there. If you want to do your 15-minute presentation session plan, then that's assessment number 14. Assessment 14. If you want to do one of the 40-minute ones, do assessment 17. Now, for what it's worth, I recommend don't do 17, do 14. Okay. So if you do a one-on-one one for from assessment number, actually it's assessment 7 is where you find the template, or you can do a group one for a 15-minute presentation. You'll find that in assessment 14. So dive into whatever the relevant course is, DES or DEL, dive into the relevant assessment, look for a link where you download the templates and download a session plan template, save it to your computer, and you can work through this at the same time as us. Now, if you've only got one monitor in front of you and it's just going to be too much, it's going to do your head in to be trying to do a template at the same time you're watching the webinar, don't worry about it. Just relax. Go, just enjoy the webinar, enjoy this class, and we'll be finished in about an hour's time, I think, and then you can just dive into it straight afterwards. Okay. So don't stress if it sounds a little bit too overwhelming to be doing a template and putting in some answers while you're listening and watching what I'm doing. Make the right decision for you. Okay. All right. But some of you I know will dive in and do it as I work through it. And that's fine. And I'll give you time to do that. While you're getting organized, are there any questions at all? Okay.
Damien, does our 15-minute presentation session have to be on a unit of competency?
Outstanding question, Simone. The answer is definitely no. It does not.
Mhm.
It
Thank
does
you.
not. So unlike the DES cluster, where assessments 9 and 11 do need to target a unit of competency, all of the DEL cluster do not have to target units of competency at all with your presentations. You can do presentations on whatever you like.
Right.
Is there anyone here by any chance who's doing one of the skill sets and you're enrolled in TAE SS 00014 or TAE SS 00015? Is anyone doing one of those skill set courses? Okay, it doesn't look like it, and that's cool. That's cool. I won't address that then. When you've got your template, when you've got it saved and it's there ready for you, or you're not doing a template at all, okay? Whenever you're ready to move on, could you pop the word done into the chat, please? DONE, so that I know that you're ready to move on. So I'm not sitting here waiting for people who don't need to be waited for. Okay. Thank you, guys. I'm going to pop myself on mute here just for a moment. Okay, it looks like we've got 12 participants in the room, and I had decided in my head that when we got to 10, I was going to move on because I expect the others won't be far behind. So we're currently sitting at 9, so we're almost there. Just give people a little bit more time to get everything together here. And just want to take a moment too, just to thank you for coming along to the sessions today. It would be very lonely if I was here by myself. So in all seriousness, thank you for coming, guys. I've just muted a couple of people too. There was a little bit of background noise coming through. So if don't be surprised if you're suddenly on mute and you weren't a moment ago. Don't hesitate to turn those videos on if you can too, guys. It's good to see real people with smiling faces. I know that that's feedback we get from our students all the time, that you like these meetings because of that reason. So please pop your video camera on if you can. All right. I'm guessing we're still waiting for 1 or 2 people. Remember, if you're not downloading a template, just pop done in the chat so I know that we don't have to wait for you. Okay, once you got your template all set, then certainly you can start doing those first 3 sections that I've already talked about. So the program title, session title, and the total time. Okay, you can certainly start populating that, and then just please stop work there, because I'm going to talk about objective a little bit before you do it. I'm going to give you some specific direction about it. So start filling in your template, do those first 3 sections. Remember, for those of you who are doing DES cluster, and you're doing the session plan for the learning program we did this morning, you'll be copying from what you put in your learning program this morning for those first 2 responses. Also, I should say a welcome and thank you to those watching the recording. I'm sorry that you couldn't make it to the session today. But if you're watching this recording, you are a diehard, you are a warrior, you are a legend. And I hope you find this video helpful. And don't forget to contact Mr. Wed when you're stuck. Okay, we hate people being stuck. We're like anti-glue. We want to get you unstuck. So if you're struggling with your studies, it doesn't matter what it is you're struggling with, just call us and have a chat with a member of our Learner Success team. We'd love to keep you moving. All right. So, folks, I'm just about guessing that everyone's got those first 3 sections handled. So I'm going to move on now and talk about objective. Now, I'm going to go into a little bit of theory here, just a little technical aspect about the difference between objectives and aims. Okay. These are technical terms. Aims are what we want as a trainer. And aim is what we're trying to achieve in a class. It's our aim as a trainer. On the template, we don't have aim, we have objective. Objective is what the students or the learners will achieve. Okay. So taking that philosophy on board, we've got magic words. Okay. The magic words are, at the end of this session, students will have the skills and knowledge to, that's the end of the magic words. I strongly recommend whenever you write an objective in the learning, whenever you write an objective in a session plan for the rest of your life, start with the words, at the end of this session, students will have the skills and knowledge too. If you do that, you're setting yourself up to write something really, really good. So my advice to you here, for those who are filling this in as we go, write those words. At the end of this session, students will have the skills and knowledge too, and then finish the objective. What will they have the skills and knowledge to be able to do after they've attended this session that you're developing? What will they be able to do? What will they know? You can see an example on the screen for a unit dealing with preparing and serving non-alcoholic beverages. Now, if you're doing non-alcoholic beverages as well at same unit, that's fine, but please massage it into your own words, create your own objective. Okay. I'll be a little disappointed if you submit your assessment looks exactly like what we got here there on the screen. I want you to think things through, create your own answers, so that not only can we see that, yes, you understood things, but that's good for your mind as well, good for your brain. It really is. It will help reinforce the learning much more effectively rather than just copying, because we can all copy and not learn so much sometimes. At the end of this session, students will have the skills and knowledge to, and the rest of the objective is yours. Now, sometimes students like to submit objectives and they've got like dot points of 5 things. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Keep it simple. Okay, just keep it simple. 1 sentence. David, you asked earlier, you made a comment, something along the lines of how do I keep, it can be very time intensive developing session plans. This is one of the tricks, I think. Sometimes students spend too long specifying this beautifully worded long objective, and we could have just gone and read the unit of competency to see what it's about. Okay, so 1 sentence, keep it simple is my advice there. All right, when you've got those first 4 sections done, your program title, session total, total time, and your objective, could you pop the word yeehaw in the chat? Now, I don't even know how to spell the word yeehaw, but write something that looks like yeehaw, and I'll know that you're done. Here we go. Woohoo was a little tangential, but gets the job done, Simone. Okay, nice. You look like a mob of cowboys and cowgirls going to town, arriving at the saloon, ready to have a drink. Yeehaw. Okay. All right. That's good. All right. Let's move forward. What we're going to do now is we're going to put the assessment overview. Mr. Wedd's view is that pretty much whenever you train something, you should assess it. That's what we think. That's what our assessors think. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean we've got to do a formal assessment, but it's how do you know if people are really understanding things and if the session is working if you don't have some sort of assessment in there? It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't even have to be necessarily assessing everybody individually, but some sort of assessment. So in this case here, what we've done is we've come up with 3 assessments, a role play, a Kahoot, and a student knowledge quiz homework. Oh, I think that's a little overboard. I'm happy with 1. So just put down how you're going to assess it. Now, you don't have to say what you're assessing. You don't need to give us any details. Just tell us how you're going to do it. Quiz, perfect answer. Observation, perfect answer. Okay. Written test, perfect answer. Now, some of you might be sitting there thinking at the moment, Damien, what is Kahoot? Okay. If you're not familiar with Kahoot, Kahoot is a software program online that runs quizzes, interactive quizzes. They're a lot of fun. So that's what a Kahoot is all about. So if you want to have some fun with your attendees, you can have a Kahoot. You can run them in class or in an online, and either is good. All right. So pop down answer, 1 or 2 words. That's all you need there. Quizlet. That's right, Lynn. Quizlet is very similar to Kahoot. Quizalize is another one. Mentimeter. Yeah, there's lots of different ones. Kahoot's probably our favorite here at Mr. Wedd. We've been using Kahoots in classes quite a while. It's good fun. Students love it. Regarding assessments, is this in relation to post-training assessment? Good question, Catherine. I don't know. I don't know your answer. It could be during the class or it could be after.
I was thinking, so, you know, depending on the design of your course, you may be, you may have, you know, training activities or, you know, for example, knowledge checks or whatever the case may be scattered throughout your training session in addition to that sort of that formative assessment, so to speak.
Yeah, so you got those formative assessments that you've got during the train, then you could have a summative assessment afterwards. Quite right. Yeah, look, it's up to you to decide, Catherine. So when you're doing that assessment, up to you. If we don't see it in the session plan, we're probably thinking, okay, it's a summative one afterwards. Okay, it's totally up to you. All right, we're ready to move on, folks. Let's do it. Oh, aids and resources is the next one. So aids and resources are things we want to take to the training. So write down all the things that you think are important to take to the training. If you think you need whiteboard markers, well, how about you write it down? Don't assume they're going to be there. Okay, now I've been teaching many years. I mean, absolutely always have whiteboard markers in my bag when I go to training, because it doesn't matter where you're going, somebody could have stolen them 5 minutes before your class. So always have 1 or 2 spares. And you know what? If I'm taking my own whiteboard markers to a class, I'm taking them home with me afterwards as well. Okay, call me cheap, but, you know, I'm going to look after my stuff. Not here to donate them to the world. So write down all the aids and all the resources, all the physical things that you think you need to take to the class as well. You see lots of examples there on the screen. You don't need that many, but we want to see multiple aids and resources, multiple things that you're going to take to the training. And as we work through our session plan, you might add more things to that list as well. Just give you a few more seconds. That shouldn't take too much brain power. Got great faith in you. You can do it. All right. Oh, Doreen, she says done. Is that a tip, Doreen? Come on, let's go. Let's keep moving along. David's in there. Kathy's in there. All right, good stuff. All right, I am going to move on unless anyone says the word more. Unless you write the word more, I'm going to move on. Okay, because I think you should all be just about there by now. Crack your whip, Damien. Keep things moving along. All right. Okay, next up, we got the good stuff. We got the main section of the session plans. We've done all the preliminary stuff. Now we get to have fun. We get to be creative. When I was a young man, it was a while ago, and I was at school, I studied English. We all had to study English at school, yeah? One of the things I was taught when I was studying English at school is that when you write an essay, there's 3 sections to an essay. What are those 3 sections to an essay? Who wants to jump on the microphone and tell us?
The introduction, the body, and the conclusion.
Oh, David, outstanding answer. Absolutely right. You know, you just can't help it. You don't be humble. You're fantastic. Introduction, body, and conclusion. Okay. We do the same thing with session plans. Got an introduction, which we call intro because maybe we're lazy or introduction doesn't fit properly in that nice big font. Then body, then conclusion. Okay, so that's how we're going to lay this out. Now, the 3 sections are very distinct. So I hope this helps you to understand the difference. Whenever we're actually teaching content, stuff the students will need to learn, it goes in the body. It goes in the body. All the real teaching goes in the body. Anything before the content, any introductory type stuff, any introductory activity, any discussions about what's going to happen or how the class is going to be organized, all that stuff goes in the introduction. Okay. Typically, an assessment will also go in the body. Okay. People often discuss that. Okay. But after we've done the training and taught people the content, and after we've done our assessment, that's when we move through to the conclusion. And the conclusion is the creative stuff at the end that summarizes, that revises, that helps put a little bow around it, wrap it up. Here's your gift. This is what we've learned. And maybe talks about what's going to happen in the future. So all those conclusion type things to wrap up the session and get ready to move ahead towards the next one or what's next, that all happens in the conclusion. All the teaching, all the content stuff happens in the body, and the introduction gets us ready for that. Because it's very easy for inexperienced trainers to underestimate how it helps people to be ready for training. Introduction is really important. It sets you up for success. Okay. So let's look at the types of things we've got in the introduction. Here we've got a soft opener, which was a word search about drinks. Why would they be talking about drinks? Huh? What's that about? Why drinks? Now, some of you are probably thinking, Dane,
Because
that's really obvious, but what's the answer?
Well, that's what
Yes,
your
Simone?
session's about.
That's right.
You're
We're going to be having a
preparing
session about
non-alcoholic drinks.
preparing and serving non-alcoholic beverages. So let's have a word search for drinks. So maybe we create a word search and we've got, remember it's non-alcoholic beverages. So I'm not going to be putting vodka in this one. I might have coffee. I might have latte. I might have espresso. I might have Milo. I might have cordial. I might have mocktail. Okay. All these things. I might put them in a word search and let students have some fun with it. Now, that even happens before it starts, prior to the start. That is legendary. I love that. Okay. Then we've got an introduction to self. That's not giving people a chance to get familiar with themselves. It means self would be the trainer here. Okay. So introduction to self, introduction to the trainer. Then WH, housekeeping. Ooh, yeah. Very important. Very important. Code 4, never forget it. Okay. Every session you prepare between now and the end of your life, please put WHS into the introduction. Okay. Even at the time, you might get there and say, I taught all these people 2 days ago, nothing's changed. They know what's going on. I don't need to remind them. That's fine. It's in the session plan as a reminder for you. Because if you have one new student, you probably want to make sure that they understand those important work health and safety things. Where is the evacuation route? Okay. What do we do in case of a disaster or a problem? What potential dangers are in this room? What do we need to discuss to make sure they're going to be safe? Okay. Have those things covered. All you have to write on the session plan is WHS, 3 letters, give it a row, makes us all happy. It's super important. Now, here it's been twinned with housekeeping. We've got housekeeping together. You could put them on separate lines if you want to, doesn't matter. Okay. Housekeeping is really important because the one question I get asked the most when people rock up to training is what? What's the one question people ask the most?
There's the
Simone?
bathroom.
Where is the damn toilet? Yes. Where is the toilet?
It's usually what time do we get a break?
Maybe they're feeling a little bit more comfortable with my sessions that they don't ask that question, David, or maybe the fact is they've already completed Scoffice going for so long they need to have the toilet available to them. I'm not sure which way it's going there, David, but yeah, that's another good one too. When is it going to be over? When I'm going to have a break? Where is the toilet? So first thing I do whenever I go to a strange venue, I find out where that thing is. There's nothing worse than being asked by the first person who walks in. I go, I don't know. Let's go find it. Let's do a tour. So get that toilet organized and tell people about it. Housekeeping. Oh, sorry. Didn't have time to jump on the mute. Then here we got a student introduction where they're going to talk about their favorite drink. See how we got instructions there, but they're really, really simple. We don't have really long-winded instructions in session plans. If anything's going to be complicated, have separate notes. But here we've got enough to get us going. Oh, excuse me. And then we got another little game, a pick the ingredients game. It'd be something like, make your own mocktail. What ingredients would you put in the mocktail? Write it on cards and share it with the other people in the room, something like that. Gets people moving, gets people excited about the training. Now, that's a good introduction. Does that all make sense? Yep. Okay, cool. Have we taught anybody how to do anything? No. And that's the idea. It's the introduction. We're not teaching content yet. That comes in the body. All right. And I apologize about the tissues and the nose and stuff. I'm not feeling 100% today. I tell you with great confidence, I don't think I'm allergic to Gemma. I don't think that's the problem. I don't think I'm allergic to any of you. I'm just got a bit of a head cold thing going. So please excuse that. All right. Now, on the introduction, notice how we've got the methods of delivery. The methods of delivery, types of things we usually have are like lecture, video, group discussion, pair share, where you get people in groups, small group discussion, whole of class discussion, listen to music, okay, activity. You could call it student activity. You could call it teacher-led activity. Oh my gosh, you could have Kahoot. You could name the software you're using if you're playing with something. Poster activity, whiteboard. Remember the days we used to actually write on whiteboards? All of this stuff. Lots of possibilities. What do you think? When Mr. Wedd's going to be, when our learning leader is going to be looking at your submission and we're looking at the methods of delivery, what do you think we want to see?
Variety.
Variety. Who said that?
Katie.
Good on you, Katie. Great answer. Katie, this is a gold star. Don't give me out too often. Catch it. Please don't let it drop on the floor. It will smash. Good catch. Skills. We're not even looking at it in order. I like that. Good work. Yeah. Great answer. Variety, folks. Please don't have lecture. Don't have discussion. It's code for boring training when you see that. Okay. Make it interesting. Have lots of variety. Mix it up. Okay. Students love that. I'm going to spare you the long theory speech about that, but it is important. Okay. Now, here's an interesting one. See on the second and third line there, we've got a method of delivery of lecture and we've got aid of resource of PowerPoint. Okay. Often people think that PowerPoint is a method of delivery. Technically, that's not true. PowerPoint is the software. It's not the method of delivery. So PowerPoint is the aid or resource. Lecture is the method of delivery. Okay. And it might not necessarily be lecture. It might be discussion based upon what's in the PowerPoint. Okay. But don't use PowerPoint in method of delivery. Now, some of you are probably really good at your studies and learning what we're teaching you, and you probably certain things stick with you. One of those things that sticks with students quite often is are the learning styles that we teach. Okay, so here's a pop quiz. If you know one of the learning styles, pop it in the chat. If you know one of the learning styles, pop it in the chat. There we go. See, Gemma, you deserve that gold star. You're a genius. Kinesthetic is a great answer. Visual learner, that's a good one. Doreen and Catherine. What's the other one, folks? There's three. There's one more. Audio, that's right. Audio is the one, or otherwise called oral. Okay, nice work. So we've got oral learners, we've got visual learners, we've got kinesthetic or tactile learners. Okay. Sometimes people like to put those fancy words in the methods of delivery. Please don't do that. It's not specific enough as an answer. So be more specific. How is it going to be actually delivered? Okay. All right. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to give you a chance to write your introduction. So I'll just move that up there a bit. So what I want you to do is I want you to write your introduction into your session plan for those who are playing along now, live or at home. Put in a method of delivery. Always put a method of delivery for each line. Don't just put ditto marks. Just write it in. Okay. Aids and resources are optional. There might not be an aid and resource, so don't put it in if there isn't one. Okay. And always have a time, a specific time for that row. Don't group times at all. Okay. Always have a specific time for that row. I'm going to give you 4 minutes, folks. We're going to be doing this 3 minutes during this session today, where we'll give you a chance to fill it in. So give you about 4 minutes now to write down your intro for what it is that you're planning this training for. I want you to do at least 3 lines, at least 3 rows. Okay. So away you go. If you've got questions or you're stuck, jump on the microphone and please ask. Otherwise, I'll be nice and quiet and give you a chance to work your way through that. Away you go. For those who aren't doing it live, because you're going to do it later, this is a chance maybe to, sip on a drink, quick trip to the toilet, whatever you're going to need to do. So in about 4 minutes, we'll start again. All right, away you go. Good luck. Just to be clear, it's just the intro. I expect you to do at this stage. Okay, just the intro. Folks, if you're done, can you pop a done in the chat for us, please? You finished your intro? Okay, going really well, guys. Going well. We've got 30 seconds to go on my little 4-minute timer. So I'll give you the 30 seconds. And then we're going to move through, move ahead. And if you get a bit behind, don't panic. You can tidy up and finish it off as soon as this session is done. All right, this is a good time for a stretch too. We're halfway through. We're just over halfway through. So have a bit of a stretch, just a reminder. Move your neck, move your arms. I want to stand up for a few seconds. Research shows we're smarter when we're standing up. So don't hesitate to take advantage of that. I don't think I've ever told my wife that, so otherwise she might say, Damien, you should stand up a lot. That's what I suspect she might tell me. Need to get smarter. I love my wife. She's the best one I've ever had. Yeah. I had 7, so no.
I was going to say, that'd be something my husband would say.
There you go. He's probably good at dad jokes as well, is he? All right, folks, let's rock and roll. We're now going to continue on and talk about the body. Now, the body is the section of the training that normally takes the longest, okay, because that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where we're teaching stuff. So let's have a look at it. It goes over the page on the example I've got on the slide. The interesting thing to note here, see how the explanations are relatively short and simple? Common workplace policies and procedures. Video on what happens when you don't follow procedures. workplace policies, group activity. Pretty simple explanations as to what's going to happen in the body. It doesn't have notes or scripts, doesn't have lots of detail. If you need more detail, then you've got two options really. You've got PowerPoint slides, okay, because they've got notes, features and stuff like that, or just notes that you print out or have in your computer or something you can read and you can walk around the room with them. You can have them sitting on a separate desk, okay? But a session plan is your game plan, okay? It's designed to be something relatively small and compact, so you can have this with you when you're doing your session. You can quickly look at it and see where you're at and where you're supposed to be. In fact, what's interesting is on our examples here, we have times 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, which makes sense for a generic session plan. But if I'm going to be developing a webinar, I'll actually go and change those things to the actual time that I expect to finish. Okay, so that I can see exactly what time I'm supposed to finish a section, and I can have a look at my watch, have a look, and no one knows I'm doing that. It takes that long, and straight away I'm getting feedback. Okay, am I behind? Am I in front? How am I going? Okay. There's some more body items on the example here, just over the screen here. So here we go. Types of drinks served, activity, identifying customer preferences, a student activity. Notice that the clever person who developed this template put in a break. It's a long session, so they've deliberately put in the break time. Very clever. Then back to identifying agreements and more practices. And at the end of the screen there, where I am at the moment, is the end of the body. Okay. So lots of possibilities, lots of ideas of things you might include in the body. And it's not just about pumping students with content information, but it's about giving them a chance to explore themselves and giving them a chance to participate in activities. Again, lots of variety throughout the body. Lots of variety makes for great sessions that students love. Again, every line item has a method of delivery. Every line item has a time. Okay. They've mostly got examples of aids or resources, but that's not necessary. If you're teaching something and it doesn't have an aid or resource, you don't have to have an aid or resource for every line. Okay. Questions? Is there anything you want to ask about that? All right. Well, what I'd like you to do now is start writing up your body. Okay. Start putting your times into your body. Start putting in your line items, putting in your methods. I'm going to give you 8 minutes to do this. Okay. Will you finish within 8 minutes? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. But I'm just going to give you 8 minutes to get on the road with it. Okay. And then in 8 minutes time, I'm going to move on to the conclusion. All right. Sound good? All right. So you've got 8 minutes from now. If you have any questions in that interim period, please let me know. And if you're not doing this, if you're live here with us, but you're not actually doing this because you're going to do it straight after this session, you're very welcome. Just get up, have a bit of stretch, be back in about 8 minutes. So the 8 minutes clock is starting now. And when we get to there, we'll continue on with the conclusion. All right. You must have a minimum of at least 3 items. You might have quite a few more than that, but minimum of 3. I don't really want to put a maximum on it. Okay, but don't go crazy. Okay, I don't expect to see 10 or 20 or 30. Okay, 6 would be great. 6 would be fine for our assessment purposes. But minimum of 3, please. All right, get stuck in, guys. Good luck. Folks, when you're done and you're ready to move in, please move on. Please pop a done in the chat. Whether that's because you're not doing the session plan with us right now, or whether you've finished doing what you need to do, just pop a done in the chat. Thanks. Otherwise, my little timer tells me we've got 3 minutes to go. Folks, we've got 1 more minute to go on the timer, and we will move on at the end of that minute. So get done what you can. If you don't get it all done in that minute, that's not a problem at all. But just do what you can before we finish up. And you'll have a chance to come back, of course, and do all of this as soon as the session is finished. You'll be able to finish up. Nigel, good afternoon. Do you want to jump on the microphone and say hello?
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, Nigel. You've just joined us, yes?
I have.
Cool. Are you running a little late, or?
Just been a crazy day. I wasn't sure whether it was a drop in or drop out, or whether I had to be here from the beginning, to be honest.
Mate, it's a drop in and drop out as you like. So Thanks for joining us. We're currently working our way through session planning.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm giving folks who are here with us time to do it as we move through. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And we just finished the body, so we're about to move on to the conclusion of the session plan. So we haven't got too long to go in this session, so you might just want to have a bit of a listen in.
Sure.
Absorb what you can, and hopefully it'll provide some value for you. Okay.
Yeah, and I've got some questions, so I can do those at 4 o'clock. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. But we're going to set everybody off to do some stuff in a moment. So when we stop and do that, you might want to take advantage to ask your questions then, if that works for you.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks, mate.
Awesome. No worries. So, folks, that's pretty much our time allocation for the body. I see that a lot of you've got through that on the chat. So that is excellent. And of course, you'll have a chance to finish it at the end of the session, which isn't too far away, because we're now up to the conclusion of the session plan. So I've put an example of my example of the conclusion of the session plan up on the screen. And what we've got here is we've got a quiz using Kahoot. We've got feedback and questions. Then we've introduced the next session, and then actually had a little takeaway with respect to outlining the homework prior to the next session. So these are the types of things that are fairly typical in the conclusion of a session plan. Usually there's maybe some revision, maybe a bit of a summary, maybe a bit of advice on what people need to do next, whether that's the next session or an assessment they've got to do, or homework or career advice, whatever the case might be. With respect to our conclusion, it works very much the same as our body and our introduction, in that we expect to see a method of delivery for each line item, each row, and we also expect to see an individual time for each row as well. If there are aids and resources, you add them in. In this case here, we can see that there's aids and resources for each of the rows, but that isn't necessarily always the case. But always a method of delivery and always a time for each row. From our perspective, when we're assessing these, we're always love to see at least 3 rows in a conclusion, because bottom line is, if less than 3 rows, it doesn't show a lot of creativity by our students, a lot of willingness to think, okay, how do we wrap this session up? How do we finish in a way that's going to provide the most value to our students? So as a result, we're always looking for at least 3 rows as sort of the golden standard, and duplicates what we see in industry practice. Folks, are there any questions before we dive in and have a crack at the conclusion? I see there's one from Dr. Puvan. Does the actual time of the lesson activities not included in the table? Does the actual time of the lesson activities not included in the table? Dr. Puvan, I'm a little confused about your question. I think I know what you're asking, so I'm going to answer it as best I can. But if I don't, please jump on the microphone and clarify for me. What I'm suggesting here is, in the times that we allocate, that should be enough. That is the time that we're going to allocate within the class. So, for example, if I just scroll up a little bit, we had various activities in the body. For example, there was one here: students to practice identifying ingredients. We had 10 minutes. That is the total time I would expect to spend on that activity, including the students doing what they need to do. Similarly, down here with the students role-playing, serving drinks, it's got a time of 20 minutes. That is everything that's going to happen the whole of that time within that class. Now, if there's extra practice they might do after class, I don't expect to see that in the session plan, but otherwise, everything that happens in the class, all the times for all the activities and all the things we're doing in the class, should be recorded within the session plan. Okay. Okay. I see. I understand your question. You've written 10 to 10:15. Okay. All right. Generally speaking, no, most session plans won't do that, because you're not usually sure what time it's going to start. When we design a session plan, we don't expect to use it just once. We expect to use it over and over and over again. And if the lecture time changes over time, then we don't want to have to rewrite the session plans unnecessarily. So most session plans I see from industry are written like this, but I do see some that sometimes are written with the actual real time, like 10 a.m. or 9 a.m. or 3 p.m., because that's the time that they always do it and always expect to do it. There's not necessarily a right or wrong way. I'd be inclined to go with a side of caution and write it the way we've got it here. But we're not going to mark it wrong if you go with actual times like 10 a.m. Does that answer your question, Dr. Puvan? Yes, thank you very much. No worries. Happy to answer your question.
Damien?
Yes, Giannis. Hi.
Hey. Do the times allocated have to match up the 3 hours of the course?
Do they match up with the 3 hours?
Yeah, you know how in the beginning
Yeah.
total time is 3 hours?
They should. I haven't done the maths. Are you concerned that they don't? But they should.
Okay, so whatever we put here has to be realistic and cover the 3 hours that we've mentioned up there.
Yeah, that is correct, sir. So we've got a total time up the top of the template of 3 hours. If I sat down and added up all these times between the introduction and the body and the conclusion, it should add to 3 hours. I haven't double checked that. Looks about right to me, but I could be wrong, but I'm probably not. It probably does add up to 3 hours. It should.
Okay.
No worries. Are there any other questions at this stage, folks? Okay, well, let your creative juices flow again. Dive into the conclusion. create your conclusion for the session plan that you're currently developing. And when you finish that, we'll come back and have some wrap ups and other things that we're going to do. So do your conclusion and just sit tight. I'm giving you about 4 minutes to do this, folks. I think you'll do this relatively quickly. And when you are finished, if you could pop a done in the chat, that would be fantastic as well. So while people are diving into that, Nigel, would you like to jump on and ask 1 or 2 or 7 questions, whatever's on your mind, sir? Nigel, if you're talking, I can't, the microphone's not turned on, so we can't hear you at the moment.
I was frantically trying to get off a phone call.
Sorry, mate. Sorry.
That's all right. I have done. So my question is on a different topic, if you can cope with that.
I can cope with that.
I'm doing the RPL assessment and working on the competency. I can't say the word. Competency conversation.
Yes, not something to say 7 times after you've had a few drinks.
So my question is, I've done the questions and I've done the decision-making rules. Now, do I need to put anything in the comments, or do I just leave that blank? Because obviously you write the comments when they answer the questions. So, or should I give some guidelines in that comment section or not?
Okay, so you're still designing the tool as opposed to having assessed somebody. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, I'm designing the tool. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, the way you phrased your question, I think you've effectively answered it already. You're absolutely right. You write the questions, then you write the decision-making criteria down the left-hand side, and you leave the right-hand side blank, because you will fill that in and you'll paraphrase things that you're told by the candidate. You might say, they've knocked this over. This is, and make some notes. That's like your little notes section, your little comment section when you actually assess somebody. So for the purpose of designing the competency conversation, no, don't write anything on the right-hand side. Just leave it blank.
Okay. It's only because it looked as though you gave an example in the template, but that's all. I can happily work on it. It's all good.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. We did give an example in the template there. That's just to help you when you actually use the instrument. But no, just leave it all blank on that right-hand side of the competency conversation until you use the document. That'd be perfect.
Sweet. That's my question. So thank you.
No problem. No worries. Did you have another one?
No, not at the moment. I might by 4 o'clock. I'm trying to work as frantically as I can to see what gaps I've got in my understanding.
No worries. We'll duck back again with more questions as you wish, sir.
Thank you. Cheers.
No worries. See ya. Bye.
Hi, Daniel. I have a question if you don't mind.
So, folks, we've got a question from David in the chat. Great question, David. If you're doing a Kahoot as an assessment of that specific session, would that go in the body? I would suggest it should, David. If it's an assessment, I'd be putting it in the body. Okay. If it's not an assessment and it's just there as sort of a summary or revision thing, then conclusion is entirely appropriate, which is what we've got in the example there. Now, it's really interesting, hot topic, that, David, because that idea of where do conclusions go. Different Mr. Wet assessors have very passionate views about whether it should happen in the body or the conclusion. Okay. I'm on the more flexible side for it, but I think all of our assessors would agree that if it's just as a closer activity, as it indicates there, more so than being a formal assessment, then having it in the conclusion is a logical place. Does that make sense?
Yeah. We do a lot of these as sort of in the session, just to and a lot of times it's really just to keep people focused. They love them.
Yep.
I love
Yep.
Kahoots.
They love the Kahoot.
I do.
No worries. You're absolutely right. Doreen's got a question. Can I? Yeah, unmute yourself. Go for it. Yeah, fire away with your question, Doreen.
And you mute me, so I need to type it down. Sorry. Okay, so my question is, now we are focused on the design cluster and we are learning how to use session planning templates, right?
Yes.
The thing is, I already completed my delivery cluster, and I realized this session plan template is very similar to the ones I completed in reading cluster. For example, the assessment 70A, that template is very similar, but in the delivery cluster for the assessment 70A, the session plan template at the bottom of the template is mentioned about the, what is that, the pre-session reflection, right?
Right. Yep. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So my question is, since I already finished my delivery cluster, and now I'm doing my design clusters, because you design the session, then you deliver the session. It's similar content. Can I use the delivery template that I completed on 78 and this assignment on the design clusters?
Doreen, can you do me a favor, please?
Yes.
The sound isn't coming through very well. I caught most of what you said. I heard you talk about how there was the pre-session questions in delivery template for 17A, which is quite right, which I didn't intend to cover today, but yes, there are some additional questions and things. I'm very aware of that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really catch the exact question you wanted an answer to, because I heard you say that you finished delivery and you're now doing the learning design question. What was the question you wanted to ask?
The question is, as a real trainer, we design the cluster, then we deliver the cluster, right? So
Yes.
can we use the same session plan template just for the session plan? And I mean, when I submit the assignment in the design cluster 9A, can I use the 17A from the delivery cluster?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. I gotcha. So I'll give you a roundabout answer. Yes, in practice, what we do in the real world is we design the session plans and we use them. We don't usually have those pre-session questions and stuff. Okay, that was for our assessment purposes, is why they were there. In the learning design cluster, yes, we jump straight into using the template without the other stuff, etc., which is fine. That's all we want. Can you use the 17As for the 9A? Yes, you can, but the big caveat there is in the learning design cluster, your sessions must be based upon a unit of competency. So it depends what your session was about when you designed it for 17A.
I think I got you, because I remember in the delivery cluster, for example, 17A, that one is like 45 minutes session, the presentation session. So I complete that template. But actually here you mentioned about it's actually the competency, the session plan. But in the real world, we deliver this session total time like 3 hours, sometimes we do 6 hours, the whole day session. So I will adapt it a little bit. This is what you want, right? The template, I mean the content of the template are exactly the same. Introduction to body.
Yeah, they're the same. Yeah,
but different is I will see the time and depends on what kind of the scenario, the session scenario.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
I will
That's
adapt it
absolutely
to
true.
the
Yeah, it all depends upon the context. So yeah, no, that's it. And you know, a session plan for a unit of competency looks very much the same as a session plan for not a unit of competency. The only difference is obviously the intent and context of it. And the time is a huge factor. Like in the delivery and facilitation cluster, as you know, we asked you to design the session plans for 15 minutes and for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas often the ones in the learning design cluster where we're trying to cover a whole unit of competency with just a few session plans, unless we're relying a lot upon extra things outside the sessions, like self-paced work or, work skills instruction on the workplace that aren't included in the session plan, it can lead to fairly beefy session plans, well beyond that 15 minutes or 40 minutes. I'll give you a little bit of a tip here for you and everyone's benefit too, Doreen. I don't like 3-hour session plans. I don't like 6-hour session plans. I myself like to keep them to less than an hour and a half or 2 hours. So if somebody said to me, come and do a session plan for 6 hours, the first question I would ask is, do you mind if I split this into 2 or 3 sessions? And chances are that my employer or boss is going to say, yeah, sure, do whatever you like, Damien. Because I find a 6-hour session plan is just too overwhelming and too much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your patience. All good.
No worries. Thanks very much for your patience with your questions. It was just a little hard to hear. All right. Folks, I'm guessing that just about everyone is done with their conclusion. Is that right? If you're done with your conclusion, I want serious celebration. So give us a yeehaw or fantastic or the world is good. Something positive in the chat to let me know that you're finished your conclusion if you are. Otherwise, don't give us anything, I suppose. Okay, we've got an all done from David, a whoop whoop, Joy, done and dusted, Dunsky. Oh, I like that, Katie. Right, awesome. Okay, because folks, that is the end of the session plan. And of course, after that on the template's got session plan template session 2. So for those of you who are doing this for the purpose of learning design, you'll see that we actually provide you with 5 session plans. Now, you don't need to do all 5 unless you said you were going to do 5 in the learning program that we looked at earlier this morning. Okay. And they do need to match up. So if you've said that you're going to do 5 session plans in your learning program, then design 5 session plans or change the learning program. Your choice. Okay. But for assessments 9 and 11 in the learning design program, we do need at least 2 sessions for each one of those. Okay. All right. Now, some of you aren't finished, I'm sure, but that's okay. We're going to wrap up and finish here in a few seconds, and then you can finish what you're doing with your session plans. We do have another session, an optional session later this afternoon for questions. So if you have questions, come along and ask those questions. I'll be here for the half hour to answer whatever questions you've got, or as long as I need to be to answer all your questions. So if it's only 15 minutes of questions, we'll be going after 15 minutes. So pop in at that time to ask your questions. I think from memory it was 4 o'clock. Is that correct? Australian Eastern Standard Time. Let me have a little look. Okay, great. Do be aware that I've just got a few things that I did want to show you in addition to what we've done. So I'm just going to change the screen share. While I'm doing that, do you have any questions right now that you want to ask?
Damien, when we're doing our session planning, obviously, as you said, we have the intro, the body, and the conclusion.
Yep.
So obviously when we do our session 2 and session 3, in our intro, we're obviously not having to go back over your WHS and your housekeeping and all of those things, would you?
You would. You
would for each session.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely with WHS. As I mentioned earlier, always have it there. If you decide on the fly to skip it because everyone knows it, that's fine. But if you don't have it there, there's not a prompter for you to think about it if you have new students or things like that, or something's changed. So look, it comes down to being clever about how you define your sessions too. Like I might be sitting there talking, and I finish a session. Now I'm going to start another one straight away. Like I wouldn't do that. I'd define my sessions differently. You want to define your sessions so they end with a long break or some sort of break. Okay.
Right.
You don't develop sessions based upon topics. But you develop them based upon time frames, if that makes sense. So for Mr. Wed, for example, the way we do our sessions is we have our session from the start of the day to morning tea. Then we have a session from morning tea to lunch. Then we have lunch to afternoon tea, and then afternoon tea to lunch. Okay, that's the way we actually create our session plans. So your question is, in that session plan from morning tea to lunch, do we have as long an introduction and as much going on in the introduction as we do at the start of the day? No, we do not. But we do have 2 or 3 things there for sure that help reorient the learners to get ready to learn again. So
Right.
if you go to one of our classes, you will find we always have an opening activity at after morning tea, after lunch, after afternoon tea. We're always making sure that students, if they have any questions from what was covered previously, have been answered. Okay. And we set them up for success for what's going to happen in that section of the day. So you still have introduction, body, and conclusion. Will it be as deliberate an introduction, as long a one as your first session of the whole program? Perhaps not, and that's fine. But I suppose the general rule I would advise to you, Simone, and to everyone is always look to have the rule of three, as I call it. Always look to have at least 3 items in your introduction, 3 items in your body, 3 items in your conclusion. If you follow that rule, we're probably going to be pretty happy from an assessment point of view.
Right. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks. Great question. All right. Folks, can everyone see the PowerPoint slide? Good stuff. All right. So let's just wrap up here. How confident are you feeling now about your ability to develop learning programs and or create session plans, whether you're here for one session or both sessions? How are you feeling? You're feeling a bit better than you were earlier in the day? That's high praise. That's good news. It's come straight in with the 10 out of 10. Same for Doreen. Okay. Don't feel peer pressure, folks. Great. All right. That's good news. They're good numbers. More confident. Good. More is good, Simone. Less would be worrying, but more is good. All right. Awesome. Okay, guys, that's very reassuring to see those answers to that question. I'd like you to pop something in the chat that you found really interesting. It could be from this session or the one earlier today. It doesn't matter. What's something you've learned or something that you think is interesting you want to remember? Very pleased to see your response too, Catherine. Good stuff. So what's something from today that stood out to you that you want to remember? Write it down, because a powerful thing happens when you write it or type it and you see it and visualize it. You're much more likely to remember it. Apart from that, it's good to share it with the others too. You can learn from each other. The difference between learning aims and learning objectives. Good stuff, Doreen. Gemma's got include a break in the session plan. Yep, if it's a long session, definitely, Gemma, that's a good idea. Kathy's got don't stress over little things. That's a great piece of advice. Variety and delivery, nice car. Variety from David too. Remember not to overthink. Yes, Simone, just work it through, write it down, make decisions, and be succinct using plain language. That's a good one too, Catherine. All right, awesome. Loving your answers, guys. And the duration of each activity. Yes, get it down so that everybody can see how long it's supposed to go for. Folks, I've got one big favor to ask, and it is a big one. This is the first time we've run this type of session as we've got today for this topic. I am really super interested in your feedback, as are the other folks at Mr. Wed. So I'm going to ask you to fill in a survey for us, please, about what you participated in today, whether it's just one session or both sessions, or if you're coming back for the question one later. I've just put the link in the chat. So if you can click that and open it up and fill in that survey based upon what's happened today and how valuable this has been to you, or not valuable as the case might be, and just give us some ideas on what you liked and how we could improve. I would be very, very grateful if you could do that. Okay. So that link is in the chat. You should be able to just punch it, click it with your mouse, open up, and it'll be sitting there for you to do as soon as we're finished in a few seconds. Beyond that, you know where to find us. 1-800-2-TRAIN. Submit at mrwed.edu.au for your questions about assessments, or just feedback comments are really valuable too. If you reply to your feedback comments would be great. And there's another screen that shows it differently and with the thank you graphic. So we do want to thank you for participating today. You guys have been really good too. You've looked after each other really well. So thank you very much for getting involved, for sharing your vision and all of that. Much appreciated. If you did the one last week, Car, and there's nothing new to report or whatever, that's fine. Otherwise, if you fill it in again and we'll click the buttons and take 1 minute to do it, I'd be grateful for that as well. Thanks, Giannis. Thanks, Catherine. It's been fun helping you guys. They've been fun helping everybody. So I might call it quits there. Looking to finish on time. We will be back in an hour and a half. I'll be here to answer your questions. So dive back in then. Thank you very much, everyone. Say goodbye to each other and enjoy your afternoon and good luck. Get stuck into your work.
Thanks, Damien. Cheers. Bye.
No worries. Pleasure. Thanks.